been reminded that she's introducing him because I have no information about it. Yeah. Okay, whenever you're ready, we are. Okay, so since I'm
Are
not,
you using this?
yeah, maybe. Alai, 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 alai. Yalai, alai, alai, alai. The Hebrew words are really hard. Yalai, alai, yalai, alai, alai. Yalai, alai, alai, alai. Now the high part. Yalai, one more time, let's stretch for it. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Every Shabbat is special, but this is a special Shabbat. We are so honored to have a speaker here who's going to fire us up and remind us about so many of the ideals embedded in our tradition and humanity. And for many of us, this is a familiar joint. We know the drill. But just a reminder, all of the prayers are transliterated. All those Hebrew words are written in English characters, which makes it somewhat easier to follow along. When in doubt, turn the page. We've probably moved to the next page. And more important than even following along with the Hebrew is, of course, just being here to offer a yalalai, to offer a clap, to offer, most importantly, to offer a prayer. There's lots on these pages, teachings and commentary and poetry. Go where your neshama, your heart needs to go this morning. And we are going to begin the way really all prayer begins, with the physical. The physical, a blessing for the body. I'm lucky to have a doctor in the family. Had a 30-minute conversation with him this week, my brother, and then he was like, something really interesting. I had a weird day yesterday, and proceeds to tell me about a man who collapsed in front of him and had no breathing or heartbeat, who he resuscitated. He's making fun of himself as a radiologist. He says, I don't know CPR. His wife did mouth to mouth, and the guy lived. It was like all in a day's work, Justin, all in a day's work.
His wife, the OBGYN, did it.
And just thinking about, every once in a while we have these moments. If we're lucky, it's a close call, and there's the miracle of coming to greet another day. But really, that is every single morning is a nes, is a miracle. We're coming up on Hanukkah. But it's all miraculous. It's miraculous to be here this morning. And so taking a breath, some of us have rushed here from Washington, D.C. Others have just come from around the block. It's all a journey. Thank God there's no ice. And we're going to offer these blessings on page 80.
These blessings actually make me think, in a week we'll begin Hanukkah, and on the dreidel it says, Nes Gadol Haya Sham, a great miracle happened there. Actually, just in a fun, playful way, these blessings are really Nes Gadol or Nisim Gadolim Mihavim. They happen Po, here. Every moment of our lives, and that's really the message of these blessings. Beginning on page 80. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. And now the English, if you want, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. 82.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our stead.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes and slumber from the eyelids. 84.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image
Salam
of
Elohim.
God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Shasani
who has
ben
made me free.
Chori.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Yisrael.
Oh, whatever spiritual path I
We
follow.
follow. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Osiris with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. 86, last one. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. Amen.
Turning back to 85, studying some words of Torah, we'll offer this responsively. I'll begin. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of the mind. Your turn.
I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart.
I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps.
I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, the Jew hopes.
I am a Jew because the word of Israel is the oldest and the newest.
I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the universal promise.
I am a Jew because for Israel the world is not completed. We are completing it.
I am a Jew because for Israel humanity is not created, we are creating it.
I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations and above Israel itself. I am a Jew because above humanity, images of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine. The reason why we have 2 clergy people here this morning as opposed to 4 is the URJ Biennial is going on in Chicago with thousands of Reformed Jews coming together to learn, to teach, to be inspired. I got an email yesterday from Elliot Rosenzweig, one of our 10 delegates, who sent me these 4 words. Those of you here last night heard this. I love being Jewish. And at a time when we might feel frightened or apologetic or like what an amazing message. I love being Jewish. Psalm 150 on page 100. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Hallelujah, 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 El B'Kodsho, hallelujah, B'Ki Auzo, hallelujah, B'Gvuratav, hallelujah, Kerov Kula, hallelujah, 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 B'Tei Shofar, hallelujah, B'Nevel B'Chinon, Hallelu b'tov u'machon,
Hallelu b'minim
ve'ugal. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, betziltzlei shama. Hallelu, betziltzlei trua. Kol hanshama te'alel Hallelu, hallelujah. One last time.
Hallelu, 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 hallelu.
For those who are able, we rise on page 108 for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch
Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yadadai, dai, 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 yadadai, dai. Page 111 in the middle. You are praised who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe
Into delicate vessels of light.
And from nothing at all, we could perceive in a world that is turned old, a shimmering new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence, how much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks upon the sea. You are praised who forms from the clay that cloaks our lives, the delicate vessels which contain our light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot.
Middle of page 112. V'ha'er einenu.
והאר עינינו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחל לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא
נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא פתחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך.
7 lines up from the bottom.
והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קוממי ולארצנו כי אל פועל ישועותיך בחרת וקרבתנו לשמך הגנוס אל הבאמת להודות לך ויחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Please be seated.
116. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
So always when we're leading into the Michamocha, our song of freedom, we offer this word emet, truth. And in working with our 10th graders, our confirmands this past week, we were talking about, the multiple definitions of God that we can have. And one of them is just a God that enables freedom. And as we're singing the V'ahavta, I'm noticing my tzitzit wrapped around my finger. Because we're all bound. We're bound to habits of being. We're bound to physical limitation. We're bound to family. God willing, we're bound to covenant. And some of us are bound up in chains that we did not choose, maybe because we've made choices for justice. I think Michamocha is about acknowledging the chains that may bind us, the chains that may bind others, and in the face of that, choosing freedom. 122.
La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Okay, now the Hebrew 122. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neda b'kodesh. Nora tehilo se pele, Nora tehilo no se pele. Second verse. Shir chadasha shir geulim
ושמך על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד
Just after the words we just sang, that bottom paragraph on 122, Tzur. Tzur, what does it mean? Rock. La 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 la. Just spoiler alert, Ma'os Tzur. Okay, 124, we rise for the Amidah. Adonai
Sifatai tiftach Ufi agita ilatecha Adonai, open up my lips and my mouth may declare your praise.
126.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Ve'anora Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim Ve'konei Hakol V'zocher Chastei Avot Ve'imahot Umevei Geula Libnei Bneihem Leman Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah V'Hoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed Mechayei HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim B'Rofech Olim Umatir Asurim Umekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bagilulot Umido Melach Melech Benit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua
ונאמנת להחיות מתים Baruch Atah
Adonai Mechayei HaMetim.
130. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמתישים אותו בשמי מרום,
ככתוב היד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מה אדיר, שמך בכל הארץ.
ברוך
כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו מלכנו,
Umoshienu be'o yashmienu berachamav le'nei kochai. Ani Adonai Elohechem Imloch Adonai le'olam Elohai Tzion Ledor vador Hallelujah Ledor vador nagid godlecha Ulenetzach netzachim krushat chanatish V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We continue seated or standing as we are able or as is our custom. We'll meet up again on page 142. Take your time, the meditations on the pages or the meditations of your heart.
$142 at the bottom.
Shalom bimromam Ya'aseh shalom aleinu Ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel Ve'imru Oseh shalom bimromam Ya'aseh shalom aleinu Ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel Ve'imru Oseh shalom bimromam Ya'aseh shalom aleinu Ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel
moment, we will begin our Torah service. Before we do, I want to share two thoughts. One is, this week's Parsha Vaishlach, we have one of the most famous, most well-known moments in which Jacob wrestles with the angel. And in his wrestling match, he receives a blessing. And what's the blessing that Jacob receives? A new name. He receives a new name, and the name he receives, the blessing he receives, is the name of Yisrael. And what is the word, the Hebrew word name mean? Yisrael. It means one who wrestles or struggles with El. El of Yisrael, the suffix is God. Yisra is one who will struggle or wrestle. Embedded, integral to our name is struggling. Struggling with God, meaning struggling to understand God, struggling to be in relationship with God, struggling to do the work that God's relying on us to do, which is to make the world a better place, which leads me to my second thought. If you turn to page 128 in the Siddur, which Tara just beautifully led us in this part of our Amidah, Atagi Bo'el Adonai, you are great, always, Adonai. This is not a Life of Brian joke. You are great. God is Gibor, actually connected to the word Gabriel. And okay, God is great, but what do we make of that? How do we understand it? What is it? What is the meaning to us? And the prayer actually knows that we're going to ask this question. The prayer actually wants us to ask this question. It needs our curiosity. The prayer is begging us, go deeper. Okay, so if you go down in the English or in the Hebrew, whichever you want, mechakel chaim b'chesed, you sustain life through chesed. Chesed, that's how you do it. Giving life to all through great compassion, berachamim rabim. Rachamim is from the word rechem. What's the most compassionate, loving place on the planet, in the universe? Right? It's the rechem, the womb. Not of us Y chromosomers, but the womb needs us also. That's the great source of love in the universe, that capacity to give life, the rechem. And then here's the real reason I'm bringing this. Amazing what it says here. Rofech cholim umatir asurim. Actually, the reason why this morning is happening the way it's happening, Jared Genzer is our special guest, who Barbara will introduce in a couple of minutes. What is it? Rofech cholim. We heal the sick. We need doctors. Thank you, all the doctors in the room. There are many of you, starting this morning with the Podwalls, who are the reason why the Genzers are here. Healing the sick. And what's the next one? Matir asurim, freeing the captives. God, Atagi Bor, you are great, God. And God's whispering to us, I'm only as great as your work is. Thank you for this morning. We have 100 thank yous in this room to give. This morning is a thank you to the ones the Rofeh Cholim and the Matir asurim, the ones who heal the sick and free the captive. Okay, with that. Rabbi Tara.
Not a couple minutes because we do have to do a Torah service, just so in case you're
Did
getting the heart rate.
I thought
going,
I said we.
Okay. But sort of,
I thought we said
speaking,
we'd start the Torah service in a couple minutes. But
so 2:44 begins our Torah service. And it's an exciting morning because we're really officially welcoming and launching our new caterer, which honestly, nothing happens without the Kiddush. And Mayor has given people permission to come just for the Kiddush, because, that's when we speak to each other. And so, and really food is how we welcome each other. It's how we show what we are and open the doors. So, opening the Ark, be calling up Craig and Phyllis Weinberg, who co-lead. It's all about marital partnership in this synagogue, as you may have seen. And then for the honor of holding Torahs, we have a very new member, Phil Perlman, who'll be coming up with a devoted member of decades, Sandy Antar. So come on up. Let's everybody rise. We are on page 244.
כמוך ואלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום אב
She's calling God.
It's fine. אב הרחמים היטיבה ברצונך את ציון תבנה חומות ירושלים תבנה חומות ירושלים כי לך לבד בטחנו מלך
Elam ונישא אדון
עולמים 246 כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו
ישראל
בקדושתו.
Where do I start?
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Repeat that.
Shema
Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo Yahweh. Lecha Adonai Hagedula Ula Tiferet Be'anetzach Ve'ahod Kicho B'Shamayim Kicho B'Shamayim U'Ba'aretz Lecha Adonai Amamlacha Yamik Na'aseh Lecho Lerosh Shlosha Devarim Shlosha Devarim Olam Omeid Shlosha Devarim Shlosha Devarim Shlosha Devarim Olam Omeid
Al Torah, Al Avodah, Al Gemi.
Asadim Al Torah Lo yisa goy el goy cherem.
Have them stand in front of the flowers. The flowers, I am.
Lo yimedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cherem. Lo yimedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el.
Stand right here.
Lo yimedu od milchama.
No camera, please. Thanks. All the kids in the middle and the parents around the edge.
Chama, lo yisagoy el goy cherem, lo yilmedu od chama.
Help me make a chuppah.
Goy el goy cherem,
Will you hold some edges?
od milcham. Lo yisagoy el goy cherem, lo yilmedu milchama.
Oh, so this is the reason we're doing all of this stuff. So, boy, good timing, guys. Way to go. Everybody says, go David, go David. And all of you all. It takes a lot of people to make our beautiful Panim program happen. We are actually, oftentimes it happens later in the service, but when the holiness arrives, you just got to pivot. So we are going to offer the priestly blessing. As we do so, I invite you to extend any blessings to the individuals under this chuppah, or to take the hand of someone beside you. If they're comfortable and you don't know them, you can still do it, or maybe grab a seat, or way to make a connection. Maybe just look lovingly in their eyes or friendly in their eyes. We're extending blessings, circles and circles of blessing, as we offer our people's oldest.
For those of you who have a talit, maybe Tara already said this, share a fringe with a neighbor. And if you don't have a talit next time, feel free to take one. Okay. Send all your love as we offer the priestly blessing.
Okay, everyone, look at me. Think of something that's really important to you, something that you really love.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
All of us. Ken yiratzon.
Yaher Adonai panav eilecha v'yichuneka.
Ken yiratzon.
Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom, shalom, shalom.
One last time. Ken yiratzon.
Thanks, guys. Shabbat shalom.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
You can return the crowns to Rabbi Meir, the king,
hallelujah.
and we'll dance them out.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walk up with me.
This is how you pray.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
hallelujah.
Show us how you can dance out.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
That includes
Hallelujah,
parents.
hallelujah, hallelujah. Watch your hand.
Hallelujah.
It's okay. Hallelujah. You can stay here, it's fine. Yeah, totally. Hallelujah. Awesome.
She doesn't want to leave the Torah. It's completely understandable.
She
Your
doesn't
bat
have
mitzvah
to.
is only in 12 years.
If only every Jew felt that way, it's a great prayer. You don't have to go. You don't. Always be close. Was that self-serving or what? Okay.
So if you are a Torah reader, I'm going to invite you just to come up and maybe sit right here, except for Sharon, who's our first Torah reader, Sharon Ross, coming up. But
Anat
Daria
and
and
Daria.
Anat can sit maybe in that second pew.
Where is Anat?
Is Anat here? Anat's not here.
Okay,
We'll be doing something else. All good. Okay. So we are going to be reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 33, Bereshit 33. If you want to follow along in a Chumash, feel free to grab one. They're just outside our Beit Knesset, our worship space. You can grab one. I'm sure any of our ushers would be happy to help. It's chapter 33, verse 1. And for the honor of the first Aliyah, it's going to be our Misha Beirach Aliyah. While we still have some of the sweetness, the nectar from the kids up here, let's take some of that sweetness and strength and life and channel it to those in need of healing. So if you're I think all of us are holding people in our hearts. If you have the koyach, the strength, and the desire to come up for a Misha Berach Aliyah, don't worry, we'll help you with the Hebrew. Please come on up in honor of someone you are thinking of in need of healing. You can certainly offer it from down here. Torah reaches far.
We'll be chanting from chapter 33, verse 1.
Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3.
Baruch hu et Adonai habarach.
Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Vaisar Yaakov Einav Vayar v'hine Esav ba ve'imo V'aso arba meot ish vayachatz et hayeladim Alea ve'al Rachel ve'al shtei hashpachot Vayasem et hashpachot v'yat yaldehen rishona v'yat yaldeya v'ladech achronim v'yal Rachel v'yal Yosef achronim v'hu avar lifnehem v'rishtachu arza Shevat pa'amim agishto ad achiv.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam yoter b'tocheinu.
No.
Baruch atah Adonai
Yes.
notein haTorah. Amen.
And with our Misha Berach Aliyah folks still up here, let's turn to 253, offering our Misha Berach prayer, our prayer for healing. 253.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage
love how the reading that you referenced, Sharon, had to do with all this bowing, this humility. You are such a person that never wants your voice to be in the fore, but you support us in so many ways, and it's amazing to have your voice in the forefront.
And how amazing that we got your little baby children here too.
Your little chickadees. They were really smiling with a lot of nachas. Okay. Second, Aliyah.
Ellie and Carly, your turns are coming again.
No good deed goes unpunished. Okay.
Daria.
Our second Aliyah will be chanted by Daria. We are chapter 33 of Bereshit, verse 4. It is a wedding anniversary celebratory Aliyah. If you have a wedding anniversary in December, come on up. I know that Steve and Eileen Walk are celebrating a 53rd anniversary. And I don't know if we all have to disclose numbers. And I guess Rosalie and Ray Goodman were not able to make it. They were at the 60th anniversary. What number? 54, 53 and 54. And Dorit, how many years would this have been?
Well, my husband is in the next world, but it would have been 60.
60. Wow. Well, I'm so glad you came up. He's here. Sure. Okay. So, first, blessing. 1, 2, 3. Baruch et Adonai HaMorah. Baruch Adonai HaMorah le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMorah le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amin. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Okay, go ahead.
Vayaratz Esav likrato vayichukehu vayipol al savarav vayishkahehu vayiku vayisav et anav vayar et hanashim va'et hayaladim vayomer mi Eila lach vayomer hayaladim arash asher Hanan Elohim et advecha vatikshana hashvachot hena vayaldihin vatish tachavena vatikshana hashvachot hena. I said that. Vayaldihin vatishchanena. I did that already.
Okay, second blessing.
Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam v'chayenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Just a quick word celebrating big milestones. Whether you're just in the fifth decade, or you've actually would have gotten to 60, I want to frame my words around the number 60, because you're on your way, just blink. And the Hebrew letter is a samech, which is the first letter of sod, which means mystery. And Mayor and I always talk about this in terms of the veil, and that, we get married at whatever age, and we think, oh, we know this person, soulmate, we know. And really the adventure and opportunity and blessing and challenge of marriage is to know that our beloved is always somewhat concealed to us. And it is the work of a life partnership to be constantly in the process of revealing the veil and knowing that our beloved is in fact not us. And just because of that, there is so much to learn and so much to teach. And thinking of Jacob's words to his brother Esau, may your relationships not be so contentious, but we know marriage has its moments. After all these years, comes back, and Jacob says to Esau, Ki al kain ra'iti fanecha kirot pnei Elohim. It like seeing your face is like seeing God's face. So may you find aspects of the divine in your own relationship, in your own growing old together, in your compassion and your learning, your adventures, your fun, in your sharing of the load. And then Jacob says, Kach na et birchati. Accept this blessing that I'm giving to you. May you continue to be a blessing to each other. May the coming year bring a lot of health, a lot of love. Mazel tov.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara.
And come down carefully. Okay.
Tara, if I can just add something to this, that your blessing actually struck me. There's something very beautiful that I've never thought about before. This 60 is the letter Samach, as Tara just said. Samach is about sod, which is secret. And then it occurred to me, sod is secret, and the word yisod, you put a yud in front of it, and it's foundation. And it occurred to me, it feels like a new idea, even though we've probably thought it a million times in our sacred relationships. It's a prayer, actually, that at the core of the foundation is the sod. The secret, the mystery, the sod is actually the essential part of the word foundation. Usually we think of foundation as being that which is so obvious and very concrete. I don't know, maybe it's just my marriage that feels like, oh my gosh, wow, maybe it's the secret, the mystery that actually is the essence of the foundation as opposed to some other way of thinking about it. Okay.
Foundations are, sometimes they move around. Third Aliyah, celebrating December birthdays. We have a lot of them. I think Raymond is here, maybe Howard, Sharon, Cal, Barbara Podwell, Elaine, Ann Finkelstein. A lot of you. Come on up. Don't pause. We're celebrating your December birthdays. Is Barbara Weston here? It's your birthday today. Yes.
All Sagittarians,
Well,
right?
December, January, March is the cold month.
Anne, you want to come down here with Cal? All right, you're mounting Sinai. I love it. Okay. Okay.
Only if you want to.
29.
No disclosure. Just a lot of beautiful
Medicare.
years up here.
I don't care.
On your mark, get set,
Wait a-
bless.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaBarak. Baruch Adonai HaBarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaBarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher barakarbanu mikol ha'amim. V'nata lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Verse 7, if you're following along. Amen. Vatigash gam Leah Biladea Vishtachavu Ve'achar Nigash Yosef Verachel Vishtachavu Vahayomer Mi lecha kol hamachane hazeh asher pagashti vahayomer למצוא חן בעיני אדוני. ויאמר עשיו יש לי רב אחי יהי לך אשר לך. ויאמר יעקב אל נא אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך ולקחת מנחתי מידי, כי על כן ראיתי פניך כראות פני אלוהים ותרצני. וקח נא את ברכתי אשר הובאת לך, כי חנני אלוהים וכי יש לי קול, ויבצר בו ויקח. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר ברכות בנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Amen.
Happy birthday. So I'm going to quote you a little Pirkei Avot. So we're like 2,000-year-old wisdom, something like that. At 5, one is ready for the study of Tanakh. At 10, the study of Mishnah. At 13, mastering the commandments. 15, the study of Talmud. 18, marriage. Missed that boat. 20, for earning a living. Halavai. 30, for claiming power. 40, acquiring understanding. 50, giving advice, all you parents-in-law. And then I'm thinking of 60. It goes on and on with other pieces of advice. At 60, you've reached, one has reached half the age of
Man is a stream.
120. Like, wow, that's what we're all going for, 120. Moses, beautiful. So I'm thinking of Moses as this aspirational leader, this embracer of mitzvah, the one who brought Sinai to us. So my prayer and our prayer for you this year, may it be a year of maybe you didn't quite get one of these. It's never too late to go back and scoop one up. But most importantly, may it be a year of mitzvot, whatever that means to you, of reaching towards a calling. There's a beautiful teaching that whenever we do a mitzvah, it's like we're sending out an angel. We're sending out a messenger of our own soul, a messenger into the world. And in this week's Parsha, we hear, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. He sent messengers out to his brother. And so may you send so much goodness out into the world. May that goodness come back to you. And may you have the wisdom, the energy, and the hope to choose the mitzvot that are calling uniquely to your neshama this year.
Amen.
Happy birthday.
Amen, amen. Come down carefully. Come down carefully. Oh, I'll take this for you, unless you want it.
Okay.
Okay. Here, you can put those down here.
Now with the Torah still out in front of us, we are going to offer the prayer for our nation. It can be found on page 258. And I'm going to call up our small group, also known as Tribe, the Advocates. So that is one that Sharon Ross has been heading up. So if you are in the advocates group, come on up. You do not need to bring your prayer book. We have it in nice big font here, but we are on page 258.
Our prayer for the nation. Come on, friends. And actually, if Ron and Ron and the executive committee will be up next with the board, so prepare yourselves.
We need some preparation here. Okay. So it's so exciting to have people engaging in all kinds of ways in that which is inspiring to them. Thank you for your work in your small group. And begin, O Guardian.
O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife. And
May our country be sound in body and spirit. Let us all say,
Amen.
Amen. And come down, Karis.
Prayers all
Safely.
lead to sacred action. Thanks, guys. And offering a prayer for the congregation, 258, calling up our president, Ron Epstein, any members of the executive committee or board who are present this morning.
When's the next time? I'm excited. Next time, and then we'll. You've got so much talent. It's true.
That is big print. That's good.
Awesome. Look at this.
We'll share this.
Spouse of the Torah reader. Some more future Torah readers.
Board members here. That's good stuff.
Yay! Oh, you're making me. I'm verklempt. So nice to see you.
David, come here.
Okay,
Come.
just everyone step away from the edge. This is mind the curve. 1, 2, 3.
Source of all being, may the children of this community learn the passions from us, love of Torah, devotion in prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy.
Amen. All right, be careful coming down.
And I'm going to ask, actually, the Slovens and the Podwells to stay up, joined by David. Come on up.
She did great. She's so good.
You're representing all.
When's
You're
your
never
turn?
alone.
You're coming. Your turn. Excellent. Excellent. We're going to be in Israel
Offering
together.
our prayer for the state of Israel. The reason why these folks are offering is because, God willing, on Wednesday night we'll be flying to the Holy Land together. Looking forward to it.
O Heavenly One, protector of Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
So may our travels together, look at me for 1 second, be safe. May they enable you to have amazing time with your families that's separate from all the stuff of life. May your experiences in Israel open a new dimension in your soul. May it feel new and different and challenging. May you come back invigorated with ideas and a connection that will last for years to come. And may we have lots of great meals together.
Exactly. Amen, amen, amen. Beautiful. Okay.
we raise the Torah with the prayers offered on 252. As I said, it's all about marital partnership. Calling up Erica.
Oh, right,
Chris.
Erica. Awesome.
For the raising and dressing of the Torah. Of course, when the Torah rises, we will as well. Chris, Elaine will help you write down there.
Hold on a second.
It's all
Hold
on the
hold
left hand.
Yeah, there you go. Chris,
No political interpretation.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. We need to scroll it. La 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la hay la 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 hay la la ya 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 la la la. Can you turn the tornado? Ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la da
Wow, that was
252 Eitz Chaim.
252 Eitz Chaim.
Eitz Chaim hi machazikim ba ve'kiprenhom cheha Yahusha Neracheha Dachenom V'chonetivoteka Shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh yameinu kekedem.
You may be seated unless you're Barbara Padwa.
All right, Barbara, you will introduce your old friend and our very wonderful guest.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce you to a longtime friend of mine, Jared Genzer. Jared has always been a talented and brilliant leader in everything he does, going back to when I met him back in our DC BBYO days. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Cornell University, an MPP from Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, and a JD cum laude from University of Michigan Go Blue Law School. He was currently named by the National Law Journal as one of the 40 under 40 Washington Rising Stars. Jared is currently a managing director of Perseus Strategies and an adjunct professor at the law at Georgetown University Law Center. He is the founder of Freedom Now, an organization that works to free prisoners of conscience worldwide. He has been referred to the New York Times as the extractor for his work freeing political prisoners. His past clients have included, I don't know if I can say these names right, but Czech Republic President Václav Havel, former Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, former Maldives President Mohamed Nasheed, and Nobel Peace Prize laureates Aung San Suu Kyi, Zhao Liu Xiaobo, Desmond Tutu, and Elie Wiesel. Among his current clients are imprisoned American hostages in Iran, Saimak and Bakr Namazi. Congratulations, Jared, on all your achievements for taking the time to speak to us today about your interesting and amazing work. Without further delay, here's Jared.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you, Barbara, for the warm introduction. I'm delighted to be here with all of you at Temple Beth-El this Shabbat with my wife Elaine. We actually felt at home immediately because we're members of our own congregation, Beth-El, in Bethesda, Maryland. I want to speak to you this morning about some of my most challenging, compelling, and profoundly inspiring work that I have undertaken as an international human rights lawyer over the course of my career. Almost 2 decades ago, I rather accidentally and for the first time performed the mitzvah of Pidyon Shivuim, the redemption of captives. And in my case, this was freeing a political prisoner in Burma. Little did I realize how much that this experience would change the course of my life, how much it matters to individuals, communities, and sometimes entire countries, and how personally enriched I would be by connecting this work in the secular world to our Jewish values. In my time with you this morning, I'll first talk a little bit about how I came to start a nonprofit group called Freedom Now, which works to free political prisoners around the world. Next, I'll talk about how this connects to Pidyon Shivuim. And lastly, I'll explain how our approach to this work has been especially effective, sharing with you along the way some of the extraordinary stories of courage and perseverance that I've witnessed in my life, which should be an inspiration to all of us. I'm often asked what led me to start a nonprofit group that works to free political prisoners. After all, it's frustrating and often near impossible work. In March of the year 2000, I was a law student at the University of Michigan, go blue, law school. I was interning with the Human Rights Group in London, and I picked up the Evening Standard before getting on the tube ride home one day and read in the newspaper about a British guy named James Maudsley, who was 27 years old and who was imprisoned in Burma. Several years before, James had witnessed the brutality of the military junta firsthand when it had torched the village that he was spending a summer in teaching English. And he began a one-man campaign against the Burmese regime. In the fall of 1999, he returned to Burma and had began distributing pro-democracy leaflets. And by the end of that day, he had been arrested, summarily tried, imprisoned, and given a 17-year prison sentence in solitary confinement. After his parents agreed to work with us, I filed James's case before a UN tribunal that deals with arbitrary detention cases. I got members of Congress involved, including a letter from the House and the Senate of the United States urging the Burmese government to release him, and I'd been working, of course, with the British Foreign Office on his case because, of course, he was British. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and we had a few things come together the right way to trigger James's release. By the time I returned from my last semester of law school, not only did we win our judgment at the United Nations, which found that his detention was in violation of international law, but just as we were making that decision public, word got out that he'd been beaten up in his prison cell, and these two things had come together to trigger international outrage. Within 24 hours of these things happening, the US and the UK called for his release, and many other governments joined in that call. And within a week, the Burmese junta had caved, and I got a call in my law school dorm room that James was going to be freed. I quickly hopped on a plane to London, and a few short days later, James arrived after 416 days in solitary confinement. And I watched 10 feet away from him in his private reunion with his family in the VIP lounge right off the runway, him being reunited with his parents, his sister, and his twin brother. And, of course, everyone was crying. And his mother introduced him to me and said, "James, this is Jared." And he gave me a firm handshake, a smile, and said, "Thanks, you saved my life." And we all cried too. It was an extraordinary moment, and needless to say, I was hooked. And years later, it's worth noting, James was ordained as a Catholic priest. To make it even more amusing, fast forward many years, he and I had a chance to see each other in Burma, a country he had been barred from traveling to for, of course, many years. And we were going to meet at his youth hostel for dinner and just find a place around the corner from there. The first restaurant we came upon was actually called the Happy Memories Cafe. And so we got a nice photo in front of there as well. In reflecting on this experience, I'm not entirely sure what gave me the audacity to take on the Burmese junta. But I soon realized that even as a law student and merely as one person who wanted to make a difference, and as a Jew, that I could impact people's lives, and I felt incredibly empowered. That said, however, I wasn't overly impressed with myself either. I'd gotten a white guy out of a Burmese prison, and the real question was whether the rough formula that I'd stumbled across could be applied successfully to get a Pakistani out of a Pakistani prison, a Chinese person out of a Chinese prison, and so forth. And so in 2001, I gathered a group of friends together to create Freedom Now. And its mission is to free prisoners of conscience through focused legal, political, and public relations advocacy efforts. Since that day, Freedom Now has secured the release of some 125 political prisoners from more than 25 countries around the world. And working through my own law firm, and at times also through Freedom Now, I've personally helped more than 45 cases of this kind involving more than 300 political prisoners. So what kind of cases am I talking about? Imagine recommending a book to a friend. This is what my client Ayub Masih, a Pakistani Christian, was accused of doing in Pakistan. He received a death sentence for blasphemy for allegedly telling his neighbor to read that book by Salman Rushdie, referring to the satanic verses. Now imagine being in prison for participating in a protest against a government, this one or any other. My client Yang Chanli was a Chinese scholar and activist, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison as a spy for Taiwan, a pretextual charge, after he returned to China and both observed and participated in labor protests against the government. And now imagine, and this is harder for most of us to imagine, including me, especially me, who doesn't have much artistic ability, but imagine being an artist, like a great singer. My client Lapiro de Mbanga was a rock star in Cameroon, literally, who got a 3-year prison sentence for singing the wildly popular song Constitution Constipée. You can imagine what that means, which poked fun at the longtime autocrat of the country, Paul Biya, for having abolished term limits so he could serve as president for life. It's my firm belief that by defending the defenders, the impact of the work is multiplied, not only by enabling these kinds of people to return to their important activities, but by the legal precedents that are set and the broader awareness raised about human rights situations in these countries. So how does helping free political prisoners connect to our Jewish values? We first see Pidyon Shivuim in practice in Genesis 14, where invaders conquer the city of Sodom, taking Abraham's nephew Lot captive. And in response, Abraham, then Abram actually, successfully raised an army that recovered him, others who had been abducted, and his possessions. The Talmud calls Pidyon Shivuim a mitzvah rabbah, a great deed, as captivity is viewed worse than starvation and death. Maimonides wrote, the redeeming of captives takes precedence over the supporting the poor and clothing them. There is no greater mitzvah than redeeming captives, for the problems of the captive include being hungry, thirsty, unclothed, and they are in danger of their lives too. Ignoring the need to redeem captives goes against these Torah laws. Do not harden your heart or shut your hand against your needy fellow, Devarim 15:7. Do not stand idly by while your neighbor's blood is shed, Vayikra 19:16. And misses out on the following mitzvot: you shall surely open your hand to him or her, Devarim 15:8. Love thy neighbor as yourself, Vayikra 19:18. And rescue those who are drawn to death, Proverbs 24:11. In the modern day context, discussions of Pidyon Shivuim most often have arisen as the underlying rationale for the state of Israel to make prisoner exchanges, even with terrorist groups, for captured Israeli soldiers. But when those exchanges have been for hundreds of terrorists for single Israeli soldiers, the decisions have been more controversial, with opponents invoking another passage of the Talmud which says, we do not redeem captives for more than their worth, so that enemies will not dedicate themselves to take other people captive. Our sages have observed even back then, in short, that there's a fine line between redemption and extortion. I liken my own work in this field to a bit of an evolution of the understanding of Pidyon Shivuim. While there are still prisoners taken as hostage for ransom today, more frequently political prisoners are courageous souls who have dared to speak truth to power and to put themselves intentionally in harm's way for the sake of a greater good. And as the fear by dictators of these righteous people among us has grown, so has the necessity of locking them up. But in this battle that often feels very much like a struggle between good and evil, the methods for securing the release of political prisoners have also thankfully evolved well beyond ransom or the raising of armies. It's worth noting that given the stakes in these kinds of cases, performing the mitzvah of Pidyon Shivuim in some cases may be considered an act of pekuach nefesh, the saving of a human life, for which the laws of Shabbat and Jewish holidays can even be suspended. As a bit of a side note on that point, that precise experience hasn't happened to me very frequently in my own work, but I remember the first time it happened like it was yesterday. I was on my way to shul with my family, actually on Yom Kippur, and I received an urgent call from my client Ayub Masi's mother in Pakistan. She was sobbing uncontrollably and telling me that she had just learned from someone in her son's prison that he had just been taken away to be subjected to even more brutal torture for which he might not survive. And I immediately got to work lodging an urgent appeal to the United Nations. I called the emergency line at the State Department and at our embassy in Pakistan so that the U.S. could reach out urgently to the highest levels of Pakistan's government to demand the torture end. And we were, in fact, able to stop the torture very quickly and ultimately later to get Ayub off of death row and out of Pakistan. What I learned in this case, though, is it is one thing to have studied and learned about the principle of Pekuach Nefesh, but it was truly a profound and spiritual experience to live it. The moment I got the call, I knew without hesitation what I had to do. I told my family to go to shul, and of course I was going to stay behind, and I set about the work of doing everything I could to save Ayub's life. My action in that moment was not optional and could not be delayed for even a moment. And the imperatives of atoning on Yom Kippur, and rabbis, I would dare say this on the Bima, at that moment seemed irrelevant. All that mattered was this narrow but essential task of trying to rescue this one human soul. So having given you some sense of how the work that I do connects to our Jewish values, now let me share with you more strategically some of the lessons that I've learned over the years about how to be most effective and successful at undertaking this kind of work. First, it helps enormously to be retained as a lawyer or other professional to represent a prisoner as a client, because you're able to speak authoritatively on the prisoner's behalf and to rally governments and organizations to their side. And so let me just tell you a brief story of one of my more recent challenging cases where that helped a lot, in my representation of Mohammed Nasheed, the former president of the Maldives. In 2008, this little island nation off the southern tip of India elected him president in the country's first free and fair elections. A popular and charismatic leader, he had introduced democratic principles to the Maldives and sounded the alarm on global climate change. You may vaguely remember of him as the president who held the underwater cabinet meeting, because the Maldives will be underwater at the rate we're heading in about 50 years. He was also a moderate Muslim who had courageously established diplomatic relations with Israel, inked a trade deal, and sent his foreign minister to Jerusalem, where the foreign minister laid a wreath at Yad Vashem and met Israel's president and foreign minister. Not an easy thing for a Muslim leader to do in the world today. 7 years later, Nasheed was dramatically sentenced to 13 years imprisonment for the crime of, quote, terrorism, following a politically motivated and Kafkaesque trial. In his youth, Nasheed had made a name for himself as a dissident journalist. Over a 15-year period, he was arrested more than 10 times, detained for more than 3 years, and terribly tortured. In 2003, he founded the opposition Maldivian Democratic Party, and 5 years later, in 2008, as I was mentioning, he was elected the first democratic president of the country, beating the longtime dictator, Mamoun Gayoom, who had been ruling with an iron fist for 30 years. But his presidency was cut short in February of 2012 when he was forced to resign at gunpoint. He was then replaced by the former dictator's half-brother, a guy named Abdullah Yamin. And after Nasheed began making a political comeback in 2015, Yamin decided to get rid of him for good and summarily sentenced him to 13 years in jail for terrorism charges in March of 2015. I was hired by Nasheed's wife to represent him, working with Amal Clooney as my co-counsel, and we undertook a broad range of actions on his behalf, including winning his case at the UN, publishing op-eds in newspapers, meeting level government officials, and pressing for his freedom personally with people like then Secretary of State John Kerry, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and others. There were a lot of twists and turns in the 10 months we worked on his case from start to finish. I traveled 30 hours to the Maldives to meet President Nasheed in his island prison, only to be deported to Sri Lanka on arrival, having been told that my business visa had, of course, at the last moment been mysteriously canceled. 2 months later, when Amal and I traveled there together, we were let in, but the government brazenly recorded our meeting with our client secretly while we were in his island prison. Amal and I were also labeled enemies of the state by the government of the Maldives. The government failed to appreciate when I sent out a tweet saying I was honored by the designation because, in fact, a top government official tweeted back, said, "No, you really are an enemy of the state." And I said, "Thank you very much." Of course, it was a sign of the profound weakness of the government that they felt the need to lash out at me. Ultimately, under immense pressure from the international community, President Yamin couldn't stand the pressure and he caved. And they allowed Nasheed, a convicted terrorist, just a year into his prison term, to travel to London for medical treatment. And Amal and I met President Nasheed at Heathrow Airport in January 2016. Now, fast forward several years later towards today, and Nasheed led a coalition of opposition political parties that teamed up and defeated Yemen in the country's 2018 elections. Although he was unjustly disqualified from running for president, his close friend and political ally, Ibrahim Soli, was elected president. Nasheed was able to return triumphantly to the country in November of 2018 to a crowd of tens of thousands, and I returned myself for the first time in December of 2018 to watch the Supreme Court finally overturn Nasheed's unjust conviction and to, in fact, meet the new president in his residence. And this past spring, actually, Nasheed was elected to the parliament and became the Speaker of the People's Majlis, the parliament. And I've been able to travel back and forth many times in recent months to continue to work with now the new government of the Maldives in strengthening democratic institutions so a return to autocracy becomes impossible. But a critical part of our success was that Amal and I, okay, maybe Amal a little bit more than me, attracted a lot of attention as his lawyers. And by the regime then targeting us by deporting me or eavesdropping our conversations, the injustice of his detention attracted a lot more global concern. So the first key point is to represent a person as a client. Second, I've learned from my experiences that securing the release of a political prisoner requires the effective sequencing of legal, political, and public relations advocacy efforts. Imagine being put on trial for advocating for people of all faiths to be able to worship as they choose. This is why Vietnam imprisoned my client, Father Thaddeus Nguyen Van Lee, a democracy and religious freedom advocate. And as I was describing before, things on his behalf were that we undertook included taking his case to the United Nations, holding a press conference to secure a resolution for the U.S. Congress calling for his release, writing op-eds in newspapers, etc. Many groups do pieces of what we do, but the timing really matters enormously. In fact, I've learned that if you do the same set of activities one way, you might not have much impact, but a different way, you have a big impact. So imagine you win the case at the United Nations, and you have an op-ed in the Washington Post, and you have a press conference with members of Congress. You do those three things separated by 3 or 4 months at a time, and it's a little blip on the radar of the government. But you sequence them to happen all at the same time. You have a press conference announcing the UN decision with members of Congress. On the same day, you have an op-ed in the Washington Post calling for the person's release, and not surprisingly, that has a much bigger impact. Lastly, it's important with limited resources that I personally have and that Freedom Now has, to take on cases that are illustrative of broader abuses in a country. Because, in fact, by telling one person's story and bringing that to life and speaking to the world about the importance of that person's need to be freed, you could speak about the country and the situation of political prisoners there and the broader human rights abuses that are being committed against a people by an authoritarian regime. For example, in mid-2010, I began representing Liu Xiaobo, a leading political activist in China, who was the lead author of Charter 08, a call for democratic reforms. He chose to be the first signatory of what became thousands of Chinese intellectuals on this historic work, knowing that his decision to be the first signatory would lead to his imprisonment. In fact, Hu Jintao, the president of China at the time, was famously reported as having said that they needed to imprison him because he was the, quote, head of the snake. Liu Xiaobo was not a new visitor to the Chinese gulag. He had been imprisoned many times before, going even back to Tiananmen Square. Several months after I got involved in the case, the Norwegian Nobel Committee that he announced that he had been selected for the 2010 Nobel Peace Prize. His wife, Liu Xia, who had hired me, was swiftly placed under house arrest. In fact, we had to have her, Liu Xia's mother, sneak a thumb drive in her shoe to see her daughter under house arrest to get the photograph that became the official Nobel photograph for Liu Xiaobo. Snuck back out to me and then taken to an internet cafe and sent to me so I could send it to Oslo. I had both the tremendous honor and enormous responsibility of working with the Norwegian Nobel Committee to help arrange the events around the awarding of the prize in December 2010, and had the really surreal experience of sitting in the front row as his representative, witnessing the iconic image of the Nobel Peace Prize presented to the empty chair. As the family lawyer, I worked on Liu's case with many others for many, many years. With Archbishop Tutu, we organized and delivered a letter from 15 Nobel Peace Prize laureates to the members of the G20 before one of their summits, and many of those countries then raised the case to then Chinese President Hu Jintao. We won their cases before the United Nations, and we did a number of other unique things on his case, including securing a letter from 134 Nobel laureates across the 5 Nobel disciplines to Chinese President Xi Jinping. But as I'm sure you're all well aware, taking on China in the 21st century on human rights issues is uniquely difficult. And as you may recall, his case had a tragic ending. He was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer in June 2017. When he died the following month, he became the first Nobel Peace Prize laureate to die in custody since the German peace activist Karl von Ossietzky died in 1936 in a hospital under Gestapo surveillance in Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. After his passing, we were finally able to get Liu Xiaobo's widow, Liu Xia, who had spent many, many years under an illegal house arrest, to Germany. But for me, the day that he died was devastating, and an incredibly painful reminder that this is hard work. We can't always prevail, but we must nonetheless persevere. Liu Xiaobo, for his part, knew better than anyone that by standing up so visibly to the Chinese regime, that the state would crush him physically. But while they could imprison his body, they could never crush his spirit or his soul. In his Nobel Peace Prize address, presented in absentia, because China refused to let him out of prison to travel to Oslo to accept the prize, he showed his grace and dignity juxtaposed so starkly with the brutality of the Chinese state. In his remarks, he said, quote, "I have no enemies and no hatred. None of the police who monitored, arrested, or interrogated me, none of the prosecutors who indicted me, and none of the judges who judged me are my enemies. Although there is no way I can accept your monitoring, arrests, indictments, and verdicts, I respect your professions and your integrity." He went on to conclude in a confident message, quote, "There is no force that can put an end to the human quest for freedom, and China will, in the end, become a nation ruled by law where human rights reign supreme." The greatest fear of any political prisoner is to be forgotten, and as hard as it is to live with sometimes, each of our defeats and each of our victories on behalf of political prisoners, no matter how despotic the regime, matters. Not only because it means the world to the dissidents we represent and their families, but also because it sends a clear message to the detaining government that impunity cannot and will not be tolerated by the international community. And sometimes, when we are lucky, and in certain cases, our work can change the direction of an entire country. Let me close first with a blessing that the rabbi said earlier. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen.
Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who redeems the captives. And let me close with one of my favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi, whose description of taking on oppressive government still resonates to this day. He said, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win." Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jared. Jared, it's very, very powerful. Why don't we rise? As we rise, I just want to share one very brief thought, which is, I said earlier, Atah Gibor L'Olam Adonai, you are powerful, and the way God is powerful and a Gibor is through Matir Asurim, freeing the captive. God is powerful, but you are the Gibor. You and Freedom Now and all who collaborate and support you are the Giborim. And we're about to offer the Aleinu, which says, L'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai. The Aleinu, when we say Aleinu, it's upon us. It's upon us to repair the world in God's essence, and that essence of God is the freedom that you're working for. God wants each and every one of us to have that essential and very embodied freedom. God bless you for the work you're doing. We'll get to hear more until 12:30 with Jared as soon as we close.
Don't schmooze.
Don't tarry.
After we leave, we're going to
282 Aleinu.
bowing only to God.
Aleinu l'shab. Go, sorry.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol.
Latei gedula leotzeh breshit shelo asanu kiguya aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gar aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch 287 V'nemar v'haya Adonai לך כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד. Please
May be seated. Thinking of those lost in the last week will be laid to rest tomorrow. Ted Cohen, regular here, always on Friday nights. And in the past 30 days, Beverly Helfer-Grand, Melvin Einseidler, and Joseph Maddenberg. Of course, if you hear the name of someone you're remembering, rise when you hear the name and remain standing. Remembering Richard, in those lost this past week, Richard Bradley Lulav, Abraham J. Brilloff, Jeffrey Leib, Jack Permit, William Rogers, Ralph Shear, Frida Serkin, May Betty Squires, Stuart Cantor, and Ben Levin. Thinking, of course, of those slain in the Jersey City shooting, Mindel Ferens, Moshe Deutsch, Joseph Seals, and Douglas Miguel Rodriguez. And are there any other names for Kaddish? Please offer those names and remain standing as I scan the room. If it's your custom to rise for the Mourner's Kaddish, please do so. We're on 294. Yikadal v'yikadash
Shemei Rabbah.
Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chaye echon u'v'yom echon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'yimru
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha brichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who creates harmony and peace, freedom and wholeness on high bring that to all of us, to all of Israel, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, to all who dwell on this planet. We say one last time, amen. And you may be seated, except for our President Ron Epstein, with a few closing words.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So wonderful to see all of you here on this really rainy and horrible morning. But it is beautiful inside here seeing you all together. So some important thank yous. Firstly to our usher corps, Martha Hirsch and Sue Hecht for taking on those duties. Our Torah readers this morning, Sharon, Daria, and Rabbi Feldman himself. Also, a special thank you to our Shabbat Point people, Pete Tufel and David Sutton, for their continuing support and presence in helping us with our Shabbat morning experiences. A shout out to Elaine Springer, trustee, who does so much of takes care of so much of the details here on a day in and day out basis. So thank you, Elaine. A special thank you to our speaker this morning, Jared Genser. Jared, thank you so much for not only being here, but offering us what I would assume is a tiny glimpse into the important and inspiring work that you do. I think that probably those 10 or 15 minutes didn't do justice to the amount of effort that you put into that, week in, week out each year. So thank you so much. We're delighted to have both of you and Elaine, here with us this morning. So thanks for being here. a shout out to Vice President Barbara Podwall for being the individual responsible for bringing Jared here with us this morning. So thank you, Barbara. As you might have seen earlier on, we have new caterers here at Temple Beth-El, W Kosher Events. Their proprietors, David and Phyllis Weinberg, who opened the Ark for us earlier on this morning, will be sponsoring our very delicious lunch. So I hope you're joining us for that. We are very excited for this new relationship between the Temple and W Kosher Events. A couple of important announcements coming up. Tomorrow, the Tzedakah Project. Please help ease hunger for local families in need by providing them with a holiday dinner. You can do this by volunteering. You can do this by providing resources and funds. There are flyers out in the lobby. Please take one on your way out. Take a look at it and come and join for this important event tomorrow. And a couple of upcoming events as well. Through December 20th, you have an opportunity to drop off new and unwrapped toys for the Gay and Lesbian Inclusion Committee sponsored toy drive for the holidays. Really a lovely opportunity to help kids during this time of year. Wednesday, December 25th, our annual Samuel Baker Christmas Volunteer Program at North Shore University Hospital, Parker Jewish Institute. This is a great opportunity to volunteer. The folks there are so appreciative of our presence and being there. I did it last year. It is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to serve. I would encourage you, if you're not doing anything Christmas morning, to participate in that. Friday, December 27th, our Hanukkah celebration. Services begin at 6 p.m., potluck dinner at 7:30. Should be a wonderful event. And don't forget, it seems like a long way off, but it's really not. Saturday, February 1st, are co-sponsored with our friends down the road at Temple Israel, Comedy Night. Doors open at 7:30 p.m. The show begins promptly at 8:30. It's always a lot of fun, good laughs, good humor, good spirits, and a good time. So to everyone, Shabbat Shalom. Hope you'll join us downstairs.
Awesome. Okay. Tara's going to announce what's happening. Just so you understand, we have a Q&A with Jared downstairs. However, Jared and Elaine have to leave at 12:30. So the faster we get settled downstairs, the more time we'll have with Jared.
And you could be getting food quietly as you listen.
Exactly.
So in a moment, we're going to do Kiddush. And I'm going to invite anyone actually from the small group, now known as Tribe, that Barbara Podwell is a part of, a circle. So if you can, if you're in the circle, come on up. We are actually going to be launching lots and lots of new small groups, tribes. Keep your eye out for emails and in the upcoming Shema. Just lovely ways to connect. We are on page 300. And just an important announcement that what maybe appeared to be a plastic or paper cup or utensil is all compostable. Downstairs, please compost your stuff, but pour out the liquids first, because the bag in which things are is also compostable. And if you have any questions, we have a compost captain, Lee Kaplan. You can ask her. We are on page 300. Let's rise.
Let's rise. Yes, exactly. Yes, I do.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat
la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת.
לעשות
ta Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם וביום
וביום השביעי
Shabbat vayinafesh, Shabbat vayinafesh, Shabbat vayinafesh, v'shamru
בני ישראל את השבת
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Raise up that Kiddush cup. Al Kain Berach Adonai et Yom HaShabbat vayikadshehu savri.
L'chaim
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei
Peri
peri
Agafen. Take a drink. You guys might be old enough to take a drink. Maybe.
Before we thank for the challah, thank you, AJ. It's so great to see you. We miss you.
Woo, AJ!
He's taken up chess. I pity the fool who's your dad.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Take a bite.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
AJ. Downstairs in a couple minutes.
Light one candle for the door. Right to live was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice. Justice and freedom demand. Light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out. It lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in. Let anger not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together with peace as a song in our heart. Don't let the light go out. It lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly that you keep alive in that flame? What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they've not died in vain? We have come this far, always believing that justice will somehow prevail. This is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out. It lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out. Nailed it.
Meow.